I didn't expect to cry that night, but I did. And it wasn't because of the words they said. It was because I believed them. I was 29 years old. I'd been in New York for almost a decade. I wasn't successful, but I wasn't completely unknown either. I was that guy, the one people remembered from Bit Parts, the character actor who showed up in episode 4 of television shows and made people go, oh, that guy, right? I had a few friends in theater. I had other actors who I'd grab coffee with and talk about auditions. We'd support each other. That was the life. That was enough. Or I'd convinced myself it was enough. I was in a relationship at that time. She was a dancer, brilliant and kind and completely normal in a way that I wasn't. She came from money. Her family actually understood the entertainment business because her father was a producer. She had a safety net. I didn't. And I think some part of me was always aware of that gap, that she was choosing this uncertain life with me while I was trying to claw my way into respectability. We were at a party, one of those industry parties in someone's loft in Soho. Everyone was there being carefully casual about how much they were trying. People clustered in groups, talking about who got what role who was. Seeing what director of The Economy of Desperation disguised as gossip. I wasn't drinking much. I was working that night bartending, which is what I did to pay rent when the acting wasn't happening. My girlfriend wasn't supposed to be there. She had her own thing that night. But she'd finished early and decided to surprise me. I was behind the bar, pouring drinks, watching the room, doing that thing you do where you're observing humanity without participating in it. I saw her come in. She looked beautiful. She always looked beautiful, but that night she looked happy. She was looking for me. I waved her over and she came to the bar. She was glowing, genuinely excited to see me. We kissed. It was a good moment. One of those moments where you feel like maybe everything's going to be okay. Like maybe the universe isn't entirely rigged against you. And then this man came up to the bar. I didn't know him. He was older, probably late 50s, expensive suit, the kind of person who belonged there. He ordered a drink from me. I made it. He took a sip and looked at my girlfriend who was still standing there next to me. He said, "You're with him?" Just like that. Not are you two together? Not a question. Just a statement of shock. You're with him? My girlfriend laughed. It was a nervous laugh. She said, "Yeah, I am." And this man and I can still see his face, which is strange and awful. He looked at me and then looked back at her and said, "That's a waste." That's the word he used. Not unfortunate, not sad, waste. As in, what a waste of a beautiful woman to be with someone like you. What a waste of potential. What a waste of her time, her beauty, her future. He walked away. He didn't mean it to be cruel, I think. I think he was just being honest in that way wealthy people sometimes are, where they say the thing that's on their mind because they assume the world revolves around their truth. But my girlfriend, she stayed. She stayed at the bar with me, and I could see her face change. I could see her trying to figure out if she agreed with him. I could see her doing the math of whether she actually wanted this life with me or whether she'd just been trapped by inertia and kindness. She told me she loved me. I know she meant it, but something in that moment had shifted, and I think she could see that I knew something had shifted. The evening sort of fell apart after that. She stayed for another hour, but she was somewhere else. And then she went home, and I finished my shift, and I went back to my apartment. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time that night, just sat there in the dark, and I cried, but it wasn't about her. It was about this moment of recognition. That came over me, this understanding that somewhere along the way I'd internalized the belief that I was a waste, that my existence was an inconvenience to other people, that the best I could do for anyone who loved me was to apologize for taking up space. This man, this stranger, he just said out loud what I'd been quietly believing for years. And my girlfriend's reaction, that momentary hesitation, that flicker of doubt, it confirmed it. It confirmed that people who loved me were making sacrifices to be with me, that I was a burden they were carrying. I didn't break up with her. She did a few months later. It was gentle and kind and probably the best thing that could have happened to me, but it didn't feel that way at the time. It felt like proof of something I'd always suspected, that I wasn't enough, that I was inherently limited in a way that couldn't be overcome. That love itself wasn't strong enough to overcome the problem of my existence. After she left, I spiraled for a while. I kept going to auditions, kept going to work, but something in me had checked out. I was going through motions. I was existing, but not living. I was present in my body, but not in my life. I'd take acting classes, and I'd be watching myself perform instead of actually performing. I'd be with friends, and I'd be analyzing whether they were genuinely enjoying my company or just being kind. I was so convinced of my own fundamental unacceptability that I'd become unable to receive anything genuine. I remember one day, I think it was maybe 6 months after she left, I was in an acting class. We were doing this exercise where you have to make eye contact with another actor for an extended period of time. Just look at them. Not smile, not perform, just look. And I got partnered with this woman I didn't really know. And when I tried to look at her, I couldn't do it. I couldn't sustain it. Because in my head, I could see the moment of recognition when she registered that I wasn't worth seeing, that she was about to confirm my suspicion. I had to leave the class. I walked out and I sat on the stairs outside the studio, and I had this realization, not a gentle one, a harsh, confrontational realization. I had given someone else's judgment the power to destroy my relationship with reality. That man at the party, he was one person with one opinion, but I'd weaponized it. I'd used it to build a case against myself that was so convincing that I'd actually believed it. There's this thing in therapy they call cognitive distortion. It's when your mind takes one piece of data and builds an entire structure out of it. One man says that's a waste, and suddenly you're organizing your entire understanding of yourself around that phrase. One moment of doubt in someone's eyes, and you construct an entire narrative about how your existence is a burden. I sat on those stairs and I did something I'd been avoiding for a very long time. I cried. Not the quiet kind of crying, the kind where your whole body is heaving because you're finally letting out years of pain that you've been storing. I cried because I realized how much damage I'd done to myself by believing other people's limited perspectives about who I was. I cried because I'd wasted time, real time, actual moments of my life trying to convince myself and everyone else that I wasn't what I so obviously was, but something shifted in that crying. It was like my body was finally saying what my mind couldn't. This is done. This narrative is over. You don't get to believe this story anymore. I got up from those stairs. I went back into the class. I didn't explain where I'd been. I just joined the next exercise. And when I had to make eye contact with someone again, I did it differently. I wasn't trying to see their judgment of me. I was just trying to see them. And in seeing them, I saw myself reflected back as something other than a waste. I saw myself as someone who existed, someone whose existence took up space that was already there, someone whose presence in a room changed things. I read something around that time. It was from this book called Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach. She talks about how we build these identities based on rejection, shame, and we guard them fiercely because at least they're familiar, at least they're ours. But the moment you're willing to give them up, the moment you're willing to say, I don't have to believe this story about myself anymore, everything changes. She writes about how acceptance isn't about liking who you are. It's about finally stopping the war against yourself. And that's what I did. I stopped the war. I stopped fighting against the idea that I was a waste. I stopped treating my existence like it was something I had to justify to everyone in the room. I stopped performing acceptability and started just being a person who existed and took up space, and that was okay. It sounds simple when I say it like that. It wasn't simple. It was the hardest thing I've ever done because it meant giving up the armor of self-criticism. It meant being vulnerable to the possibility that people might not like me and being willing to let that be okay. It meant accepting that my girlfriend leaving wasn't proof of my unworthiness. It was just a thing that happened, a story that ended, and I was still here. After that, things started to shift, not miraculously, but there was this steadiness in me that hadn't been there before. When I'd go to auditions, I wasn't trying to convince people I deserved to exist. I was just offering them something, a performance, an interpretation, a piece of my humanity. Some people connected with it. Some people didn't. And I could handle both outcomes without it feeling like a referendum on my fundamental value. The success came later. Game of Thrones came later, but I don't think I would have been ready for it if I hadn't had that breakdown on the stairs. Because success is a weird thing when you don't believe you deserve to exist. You win and you feel like a fraud. You get recognition and you immediately start waiting for someone to see through it. You achieve things and you can't actually enjoy them because you're too busy waiting for the other shoe to drop. But when you actually accept that you deserve to take up space, that your existence isn't conditional, that your worth isn't determined by someone else's limited perspective, then success is just something that happened. It's not proof of anything. It's just what happens when you do good work and get lucky and the world happens to align in your favor. I'm 56 years old now. That moment at the party, that man saying that's a waste, it happened more than 20 years ago. And it still stings sometimes, but it doesn't have the power over me that it used to. Because I understand now that he was never talking about me. He was just a person with opinions. And I gave those opinions weight they didn't deserve. The real work wasn't getting over what he said. The real work was getting over what I'd done with what he said. The real work was forgiving myself for believing him, for believing that I was a waste, for believing that my girlfriend was sacrificing something to be with me instead of just choosing to be with me because she loved me. That's what I think about now when I'm having a hard time, when I'm feeling like I'm not enough, when some old voice whispers that maybe I should just disappear and make room for someone better. I think about that moment on the stairs. I think about the moment I finally decided that I didn't have to believe. The story that other people were telling me about who I was, I think about the moment I decided to believe myself instead. And here's what I actually know after all these years: you're going to get hurt. Someone's going to say something that lands wrong. Someone's going to look at you with doubt. Someone's going to walk away. And that's real. That's going to happen. But what happens next, what you do with that wound, that's up to you. You can do what I did. You can weaponize it. You can use it to build a case against yourself. You can spend decades performing acceptability and trying to prove your worth to people who probably forgot about you 5 minutes after they hurt you. Or you can sit with it. You can let it break you open. You can let yourself cry until something shifts. You can get to the point where you're so exhausted from fighting against yourself that you finally just stop. Finally just say, I'm here, I exist, I take up space, and that's enough. That doesn't mean everything is suddenly perfect. That doesn't mean you never doubt yourself again. But it means you stop letting other people's opinions determine whether you're allowed to be alive. It means you stop treating your own existence like it's a problem that needs to be solved. It means you accept that you're here, and you're messy, and you're flawed, and you're exactly as valid as anyone else. That acceptance, that radical, humble, honest acceptance of your own existence, that's where everything changes. That's where you finally stop wasting your life trying to prove you're not a waste. That's where you start living like you actually believe you deserve to be here. And you do. You deserve to be here. Not because you've earned it, not because you've proven it, not because someone else decided it was okay. You deserve to be here because you're here, because you exist, because that's enough. Believe that. Finally, completely, deeply believe that, and then watch what becomes possible.